Welcome back to the channel, everybody. I'm your host, Ricky Green, here for Tide Talk Sports, and you're watching the Alabama Football News and Rumors channel on YouTube, presented by Chat Sports. Lots going on right now over at the University of Alabama, particularly when you're talking about the coaching staff, moves being made, and we need to take a look at some of those. We'll talk a little bit about the Jeff Banks to Texas situation, and then I want to mention another few Crimson Tide assistants that could be looking at other opportunities as well. You're not going to want to miss a single minute of what we've got to talk about in today's episode of Tide Talk, and we'll get started right now. All right, I kind of want to do something a little bit different to start off today's episode of Tide Talk. Usually, we start every episode with a question for our viewers, but today, let's do something a little different. Get in the comment section right now and let me know how you feel about Steve Sarkisian continuing to poach assistant coaches away from the University of Alabama. Now, I would put how I feel in the comment section as well, but it might be labeled as not safe for children, so I'll leave that up to you all. Let me know right now in the comment section how you feel about Steve Sarkisian poaching assistants away from Alabama. I absolutely cannot wait to see what you all think about that. All right, moving right along here, I guess everybody's heard by now that Jeff Banks is off to the University of Texas to join Steve Sarkisian and Coach Kyle Flood. Kyle Flood came to Alabama with Steve Sarkisian, so in my opinion, it's not that big of a deal that he left with Sarkisian when Sark went to Texas. But I feel like Sarkisian crossed a line here when he went and poached Jeff Banks. As far as I understand it, everybody at Alabama was under the impression that Jeff Banks would stay with the Alabama Crimson Tide, and then lo and behold, Jeff Banks and Steve Sarkisian go behind Nick Saban's back, do some shady business dealings, and next thing we know, Jeff Banks is off for Texas, and all I have to say about that is good riddance, Jeff Banks. We're not going to spend a lot of time there. Before we continue in today's episode, though, if you're still looking for your national championship gear, we know where to find it. I will post the link here in today's episode on the bottom of the screen, and I will put it down in the comment section and in the description as well. Check out chatsports.com/Tide2020/ for all your latest, greatest Alabama 2020 National Championship gear. Moving right along here, we're going to take a couple of minutes and talk about some other coaches that might be moving along. And I want to start right off front with the big name out of the ones we're going to talk about. Pete Golding is now rumored to be the leading candidate to become the next defensive coordinator at Texas. Some of you Alabama fans are saying, thank God. I'm not really leaning one way or the other as to how I feel about this, but I am not worried about it in the least. Pete Golding has been rumored to have interviewed for the LSU job. Now it's come out that he's a leading candidate, or the leading candidate, for the defensive coordinator spot out at the University of Texas. So I do not believe either way this goes, I don't expect to see Pete Golding return next season to the University of Alabama. And I'm sure there's a lot of Alabama fans that will be happy about that. Before we continue on, if you haven't hit that subscribe button already, I want you to do that for me right now. Sometime during the night last night, we have passed by having 5,000 subscribers here on our YouTube channel, and now we've got our sights set on our next goal, 6,000 subscribers. If you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, I don't know what you're waiting for. Go ahead and hit that for me right now and help us reach our goal. I certainly would appreciate that. All right, another couple of coaches that we want to mention here as we head on in towards the end of today's episode of Tide Talk. We'll stick on the defensive side of the ball. A couple of assistants that I definitely hope we're able to keep in Tuscaloosa, and two guys that I think would at least be in the running to replace Pete Golding. I'm talking about our defensive backs coach, cornerbacks coach, Carl Scott, and our defensive line coach, Freddie Roach. Both of these young guys are thought to be, assistants that will be defensive coordinators somewhere sooner rather than later, and I'm hoping that we can hang on to them in Tuscaloosa. Switching gears here now, we'll look over at the offensive side of the ball. There's a couple of coaches there that we need to mention as well that could potentially be looking at other opportunities. Now, I've heard Charles Huff, our running backs coach, mentioned in connection with a couple of openings out at Marshall, and I think that Hallman Wiggins is another coach on the offensive staff that we need to be looking at as far as somebody that could be moving along. In fact, the rumors at the very least are that there is a mutual decision that has been made between Nick Saban and Hallman Wiggins that he would be looking for other opportunities. Lots and lots of rebuilding that's about to have to go on here as far as the football staff at Alabama is concerned. But one thing is for certain, as long as Nick Saban is the head coach down in Tuscaloosa, we will be just fine, and there is no doubt about that. Now, before we wrap up tonight's episode of Tide Talk, I want you to hit that thumbs up button for me right now. Every time you get that, hit that thumbs up button, it forces the YouTube algorithm to recommend our videos more often. More recommendations turns into more views, which in turn will help us roll out more content for you all here. A good situation all the way around. So to recap what we've talked about today, Jeff Banks, the Rat, gone to Texas. Got a couple of more assistants that could be looking at other opportunities that we've mentioned. And Pete Golding looks to be leading the race to become the next defensive coordinator out at Texas. We appreciate each and every one of you tuning in here with us for today's episode of Tide Talk, and we hope that you will hit that subscribe button, hit that bell for notifications, and let us become your new #1 source for all things Alabama Crimson Tide on YouTube. I'm Ricky Green for Tide Talk Sports on the Alabama Football News and Rumors channel presented by Chat Sports, and we'll see you next time. Roll Tide.